60 years in business.
52 to be exact.
To be exact, 52 years in business and still going strong and fast and playing the mandolin. You're never getting tired of playing bluegrass?
No, I love it.
Why?
It's part of my heritage, I guess. Being from the geographical location in the Appalachian region in the southeastern part of the U.S. in eastern Tennessee, deep in the mountains, and the music was very, very prevalent and common in that area. And my father and my mother sang quartet music, gospel quartet, four-piece. And then and he continued on after she stopped, and but you could hear when I was a little kid on the radio. They had a lot of live entertainment, people that would come to the town and play, have a radio show, and the purpose was it was not so much that they paid them a lot of money. The purpose was to get a position there, and then advertise their availability for a concert in the area. So that's how they solicited for concerts. And so I heard a lot of the live music on the radio. I was born in eastern Tennessee in what we call the Tri-Cities region. And it was Kingsport is my hometown, but Kingsport, Bristol, and Johnson City they're all together, a little triangle. And in Bristol, there had a radio station, WCYB. So I was introduced to the Stanley brothers, Ralph and Carter. Flat and Scruggs were there for a while, Mac Wiseman, my first boss, Jimmy Martin. It was a very common thing for me. I learned to love the music I became aware of the music when I heard Bill Monroe. Of course, he's known as the father of bluegrass. When I heard him on the Opry, the Grand Ole Opry, I was about 5 years old, and I knew that that's what I wanted to do, and I've never gotten tired of it.
Nowadays, as you mentioned Bill Monroe as the father of bluegrass, and you mentioned Jimmy Martin, which I heard would be one of the hardest musicians to play with, and a hard school for playing with.
Well, it was, but it was a hard school, but it was a good one if you would pay attention. And I worked for him twice. The first time I started playing, I was playing banjo. And I learned to play the banjo and hopefully to get a job either with Jimmy or my hero Bill Monroe. In those days, there was not so many groups, so your choices were limited. If you wanted to play work in a group on a professional level, you had Reno and Smiley, the Stanley brothers, Bill, Flat and Scruggs, Jim and Jesse, and Mac Wiseman, and the Osborne brothers. That was probably the elite A tier of the people that were nationally known, and so I looked at my options as playing the mandolin, which is what I started learning to play. And I realized that Bill was a mandolin player, and Jesse McReynolds was a mandolin player, Bobby Osborne was a mandolin player, Reno and Smiley, Don Reno Red Smiley, Don's son Ronnie was a mandolin player, and Jimmy Martin's brother-in-law was a mandolin player, Paul Williams. So I said, well, my chances are not really good. So I learned to play banjo. The big reason was that. And sure enough, I'd been playing the banjo for maybe a year and a half or so, and I got a call from Jimmy Martin, and I hopped on a bus, made a 7 or 8 hour trip to Nashville, Tennessee, and 52 years later, I'm still at it.
As you mentioned these two, you played with the country gentlemen as well.
I did for 7.5 years. Yeah.
All of these were legends in their own time.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're a legend in your time. How do you feel to lead on this kind of tradition?
Well, you know, I've never put a lot of thought into the legends status that some acquire and some don't. For some reason, I have, I guess, and a lot of it has been through my association with first Jimmy Martin, and then I left Jimmy I went to work for him in '63, and then a couple, 3 years later, I wound up in Kentucky working with J.D. Crowe, who was the banjo player for Jimmy. He was the one that everybody had to try to emulate because that's what Jimmy liked, you know. And so I worked with J.D. A little over 5 years, and then I got the call to go with the country gentleman. And each of these moves I made, I felt like was real beneficial to my career. Now I got to tell you, I had no thought when I was a young 18-year-old. I had no thought or no desire. I never dreamed of ever becoming a band leader and doing all the things I've had the opportunity to do. All I wanted to do in the early days was be on stage with a group, you know, and playing the music I love. But you know, you mature as a musician and you mature as a person, and to stay around as long as I have, you do have to acquire a little bit of a business head on you too, because it's, you know, music is a very fickle occupation. So you take advantage of the good things when they come along, and that's what I try to do. But to arrive at, you know, and the people call me, you know, I played a long time. 52 years is a long career, and I'm blessed to have it. And I'm working as much as I want to work, and I cut it off. Tell my agent, who is actually my wife's sister, she does my booking arrangement, and I said, don't book more than 120 dates, because that keeps me on the road about 220 days a year, and that's enough. I'm 71 years old, and it doesn't bother me because I love it. But yet, in the early days with particularly the country gentlemen, we worked all the time. We toured all the time because you had to. So all these things they combine to when you step out on your own. And you know, I've had my own group I've had for 36 years. When you step out like that, then the focus is more on you as an individual, because you're the leader of the band, and you're making things happen. So I'm very blessed to, if all the accolades that are handed my way, I don't take them for granted, and I'm very much appreciative of it. But at the same time, I'm very careful not to let it inflate my ego.
All this leads to the school of Bluegrass.
I guess yes. I think it. Well, I've tried another thing too. I took the things that, you know, you mentioned Jimmy being a hard teacher, and he was very disciplined, but that's the good thing. And so I go from there and I go to work with J.D., and J.D. is like me. He was inquisitive, and he wanted to explore a little bit more musically, and we weren't afraid to try new things, you know. Spend 5 years there, and I go with the country gentleman, and it's even more open, you know. And they just gave me free rein, you know. And it was there that I was handed the opportunity to look for the material that we recorded, arrange the material. And after a while, a couple of years or so, I found myself being curious about what was on the other side of the glass in the studio, and I wanted after I got through performing, recording the song, I wanted to go over there and see what made all that work. So then I learned to produce the music and to mix it, do the whole thing. And I'm a bit of a control. Now I like being in control. So having said that, I've produced my own. I've always produced my records. I'm part of the mixing and the balance and all that. From the first note hit till the last note, and we call it a rap, I'm there.
So we send you the recording we do tonight, and you can mix it.
we can tweak it, absolutely. Oh yes.
I was wondering.
In fact, I'd like for you to do that. Well, and I have my Restophonic guitar player, Josh Swift. You'll see tonight. The last 1, 2, 3. I think the last 4 recordings we've done for the record company, we do in his studio, and he is an excellent engineer. Well, when we do TV shows, something, if we tape them, he takes them and we mix them and send them back to him, and it works quite effective.
What I always find very interesting about Quicksilver is, as you said, with the country gentleman, you explored the other sides of bluegrass, but with Quicksilver, you do it on the one side. On the other hand, you're very traditional, especially coming to the 4-part harmony singing, which got me on first. I think the first record, I can't remember which one it was. One of the 1,000 records you did.
There's been a lot.
And I heard this 4-part harmony singing with a bass.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it, that a guy could have a bass like that singing. This was the one which really got me into it.
Well, that part of it, I've always loved harmonies, and the reason being, I mentioned my mother and my father, and they sang gospel music. It was quartet music. In those days, usually it was 3 males and a female. The female sang alto, but I took a lot of the music that I had heard my dad do in the quartets, and I adapted it to fit me because it was part of me. I grew up with it, and I remember when they used to practice, and they have a 7-note system that they used, and and each note had a shape that I identified, and hence the name shape note music. And that was kind of devised by a fellow named James D. Vaughn many years ago. And I can remember when he would go and was learning to read that music. And so when I was a kid, they would work and practice and all that. And all my little brother and all the other kids of the members of the quartet or the family, they'd be out and they'd playing in the yard, and I would sit right at their feet, and I would just watch and hang on. I just couldn't get enough of music. I had no interest in pulling a wagon or riding a bicycle. I wanted to hear the music, and it served me well. And before my father passed, he insisted that I at least learn the basic rudiments of shape note music, and it's been very helpful. I'm not fast at it, but I do know enough that I can take a song, any song in those. And he had an old army locker full of those books that he had collected all those years, and he gave those to me. And so I've got. If I could live 2,000 years, I'd probably not run out of songs if I wanted to record them, But I'm so thankful that he did that, and that was always a part of the equation with me when I told the original 3 guys that came on board was Jimmy Haley, Lou Reed, and Terry Balcom, and I kind of did a layout of what I would like to have in a group. That's one is we're not one-dimensional. We're not going to be painted into a corner and say we can't do that because that's not what we do. I want to do whatever we want to do. If we want to do a progressive, or we want to do real traditional, whatever we want to do, I want to be able to do it. I don't want to have any attachments to my exploration. And I said, but above all, I want to have a quartet like my father had. That's where the harmonies came in. So that explains all that.
Which are brilliant. When you, as I say it now, as a traditionalist,
yeah,
look at the new forms of bluegrass, especially done in traditional places of the U.S. like Boston,
mm-hmm.
New York. What do you think about these groups? Can you get warm with this form of new bluegrass or new grass? Well, new grass is something special. It's jazz or something like that.
Well, I you know what? Number one, the music has to grow, and you know, with each day, with the passing of time, brings about a change even when we're not aware of it. And so really I look at the new people that are coming on, and it's their idea of, they're trying to voice and perform the way they feel it. Now I will say that there's probably some music that they're trying to call bluegrass. I don't know that you would. Now that's not to say that it's bad music. But here's the thing. We have so many genres of music. We have a traditional country. We have what would they call the old time, or you know, we had the folk. Now we've got the outlaw country. We've got all these different things. We have bluegrass. We have bluegrass gospel. And but the reason is because when you have the genres of music, what makes it that is the fact that it is based around a foundation. And my belief, if you get too far away from that and it becomes something that you don't recognize, then it's really not, it's another form of music. And to understand, I like all kinds of music. I listen to a lot of stuff. I won't listen to racket, but I'll listen to music. But I know that first of all, young kids today probably couldn't relate to the music that I did when I was growing up, and I dare say that probably some of the young folks can never even visualize a little cabin home on the hill, you know, and so they're bringing in new ideas, new songs, and that's good in a way, because in the early days in the formation of the IBMA, I was one of the founding members, and served on the first board of directors. It was on the board a couple of times after that, and we were in I guess an open session one time. Somebody asked if bluegrass would ever be a commercial success as a music. My dear friend Sonny Osborne spoke up, and he said he answered perfectly. He said, "It will be, but it won't be what you hear. What you hear now, that won't be it. It will be, if it ever becomes commercial, it won't be what we think. It won't be what we're listening to or what we're performing." And I think he's right. I do. And my only hope is that the young people that do come along and they pick up the torch and they carry it and to further the music, is that they don't lose sight of the roots and the foundation of where it came from. Because I realize that growth is necessary and change will happen whether you want it to or not.
I'm so happy that when you just did all these genres we have, that you didn't mention pop country.
Is there a pop country?
There is a.
What would you define as?
I would call it bullshit.
Yeah. Well, you know.
Actually, I can't listen to Taylor Swift or things.
No.
Like
Well, that's again. That's exactly what we're talking about. You know, I just produced a new CD on two brothers from North Carolina called the Malpas Brothers. They are pure country, and they learned all that music from their grandfather and his record collection. Now they're 25 and 28 years old respectively, but they have the heart for the music as maybe George Jones or Hank Williams would have had in 1950. You know, that's how they look at it. And so I really liked what they did, and I called my record company, and I got them a deal with my record company's country division. Or it's a kind of a country Americana label, and they have the bluegrass label and the gospel label, and so I got them on that. And they write songs, but we chose the first one. We tested the waters with two original songs, and the others are covers. They did anything from Bill Anderson's "A Death in the Family" to Marty Robbins' "Begging to You" and things like that. And it's a great recording, and it was recorded more in the style of the music you would have heard in the mid to late '60s through the '70s. When Orrin Bradley would bring in the Anita Kerr singers, I used some background vocals with him, but I got that crying pedal steel and and a good piano, and it's an excellent record. Some of the reviewers tended to find fault. They were rather than to understand what the brothers were about, they were quick to try and compare. Well, the comparison was never the idea. What they wanted to do was just to do the music they loved, to show people what they did love. So I think some of the reviewers missed the mark. Now, overall the reviews are great, but if you ever have a chance, iTunes, it's called the Malpas Brothers, Malpass.
Already.
Yeah, and I'm very proud of it. It's a great record. I had a Pete Goebel song. Of course, Pete's a dear friend I've known close to 50 years. Actually, the first song that I co-wrote and got recorded when I was with JD was I co-wrote with Pete Goebel, and he's written for the Osmond Brothers and wrote a lot of songs when I was with the Country Gentlemen as well. And so I had a song that was not, it was perfect for what we were doing, and so it's on there. But look it up. I think you'll enjoy it. But it's certainly not. It is eons away from from the stuff we're hearing today.
Just to come to an end, what would you say is bluegrass? What makes bluegrass so special?
Well, I think what it's always been is the honesty and of the heartfelt emotion that you hear in the deliveries, and it still is that way to a large degree, and probably the newer pickers, the younger people, are maybe a little bit more into picking than they are vocals, and I'm hoping that'll come around too. I mean, there's a lot of young groups that are good vocalists as well, but vocals is that's what keeps you on the road, and but it's the honesty of the music. It still is, and it's a heartfelt, and certainly. It would not be for the fame and the fortune, or maybe fame a little bit, but fortune, But I'm very happy with my career in the music, the path I chose. If I could go back, I wouldn't change a thing. It was not about the money. Never about the money for me. It was about the love of the music. I realize money is a necessity, and I have people that I'm obligated to provide income for, but that's the business part. But I tell each man that comes in this group, I say, you got to, if you don't play for the love of the music, it won't work. That's first. Then you worry about the money is second. If you play good music, the money will come.
True word. Thanks
My pleasure.
very much
My
for
pleasure.
taking your time.